Hello students, so let's continue explanation of the chapter. In my previous chapter I left on the when I talking about the periodization made by the Britishers and the other historians. Now we'll see what is colonial. By reading this chapter, I think you will understand how the British came to conquer the country and establish their rule. एंड दे सब्जुगेट और यू कैन से अपने साथ कैसे उन्होंने लोकल नवाब्स और राजास को मिलाया. हाउ दे इस्टेब्लिश कंट्रोल ओवर द इकोनॉमी एंड द सोसाइटी. हाउ डू दे कलेक्ट रेवेन्यू टू मीट ऑल देयर एक्सपेंसेस. bought the goods they wanted at the low prices. They produced crops they needed for export, and you will understand the changes that came about as a consequences. You will get to learn about the changes British rule brought about in the values and the tastes, customs and the practices when the subjugation of the one country by the another ideas leads to these kind of the political, economic, social and the culture changes. It is referred to as the colonization. That is referred as the colonization. अब उसमें ये सब चीज़ें होती हैं तो उसको हम बोलते हैं colonization. Now how do we know? Now see what is under it. Administration produces records. British believed in act of writing, which produced an administrative culture of memos, nothings and reports. They also carefully preserved important documents and the letters. Important records are preserved in all administrative institutions. So in the early years of the 19th century, these documents were carefully copied out and beautifully written by the calligraphist. Okay. By the middle of the 19th century, with the spread of the painting, multiple copies of these records were printed as to keep the record. Surveys become very important. Under the social administration, the practice of surveying become common. By the early 19th century, detailed surveys were being carried out to map the entire country. In the villages, revenue surveys were conducted to know the topography, the soil quality, the flora, fauna, local histories and the cropping pattern. From the end of the 19th century, now census also start taking place, were held every 10 years, which prepare the detailed records of the number of the people in all the provinces of India, and nothing information of the caste, religious occupation, ये सब नहीं, बस किस एरिया में कितने लोग हैं, they record of it. There were other many surveys also, like the botanical surveys, zoological surveys and so on. Now what official records do not tell. अब इन्होंने सब अपने क्या चीज़ ऐसी थी जो उस ऑफिशियल रिकॉर्ड में नहीं होती थी. Official records will not help us to understand what other people in the country felt. Feelings were not mentioned there in the records, and what lay behind their actions. Records like the diaries of the people, accounts of the pilgrims and the travelers, autobiographies of the important personalities and the popular booklets are found other than the official records. At that time, during that time, printing was introduced and the newspaper were published, and issues were debated in the public. लोग जो थे आपस में बैठ के जो भी इशू होते थे उनको बैठ के डिबेट करते, डिस्कस करते थे. Leaders and reformers, they start writing to spread their ideas. Poets were writing their poetry, and how the workers of the mines are feeling, and the poor people are living their lives on the streets. All this are start being ये सब भी लिखना आप start ये सभी लिखना स्टार्ट हो गया था। That's it for now, students. Here the explanation of this chapter is over.